Hey guys, today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I thought I would cover how I became a theme park enthusiast and how I ended up here on YouTube. First things first, I've probably said this till I am blue in the face, but living up here in Scotland, there isn't really a massive selection of theme parks and attractions. Now, there were a little more when I was younger, but I don't remember visiting any of those. My kind of early exposure to rides was the travelling fair. Now, I lived in the high-rise flats in Edinburgh, and outside from my window I could see this gigantic playing field, and once a year there used to be a travelling fair that visited. And times were simpler back in the 80s and 90s. I would regularly just go outside and go over to the fair, sometimes with money to go on the rides, sometimes just to soak up the atmosphere and just, you know, chat to the ride ops. Now, I'm an only kid, so I didn't have anybody to go on these rides with, and you know, we didn't have social media back then, we didn't have phones and tablets and all that kind of good stuff, so I'm from the generation that had to use their imagination. And yeah, I have memories of me as a kid in the house pretending to be a ride op for these travelling rides. So I guess from an early age that kind of bug for rides has been there. But as I say, it certainly wasn't visiting multiple theme parks. I was fortunate enough to visit Blackpool a lot as a child. I've said till I'm blue in the face on the channel, it is my local park, despite being 3-4 hours away. But my parents did take me there quite a lot as a child. There are pictures of me very young on Alice, there's pictures of me in Beaver Creek, there's pictures of me outside the gold mine. So I was there a lot as a child. Again, being an only kid, I didn't have anyone to go on the rides with, and neither of my parents are particularly like thrill seekers, so I was kind of limited in what I could do. I do remember a trip, and I must have been maybe about 10ish, you'll see a picture in a minute, where I was there. I must have been there for quite a few days, because I remember meeting this lass from Dundee, I think. She was a couple of years older than me, also on her own, and she and I went on a couple of rides. Steeplechase being one of them, and there's a picture of me looking absolutely petrified, just leaving the station. The ride hasn't even started yet. I do recall planning to meet the following evening and do Revolution, and she stood me up, so I didn't get on Revolution for quite some time. I fast forward a few more years, and I did manage to get a little bit further afield. I went to Alton Towers. There's two trips that stand out to me. The first one was a school trip. Now, it must have been mid-90s. Nemesis was there, but I think it could very well have been the opening year. It was certainly around about that time. And I remember distinctly sitting in that queue, standing in that queue, for a ridiculous amount of time. You know, well, probably not by today's standards, but it was well over an hour standing in this queue and getting into the station and then absolutely bottling it and just walking straight through the ride. Fortunately, as the ride ops were coming around and checking all the restraints, I kind of nicked back in at the last minute. I thought, I've stood in this queue for over an hour, I'm going to do it. And I did get in and I clicked on. I was trying to find the picture. There is a photo somewhere of me on that ride back then. Absolutely loved it. Fantastic ride back then. And I think that was probably the beginnings of that kind of thrill seeker side of things. Now, there was another trip a few years later. In 2000, I went on a scout trip. I was a scout leader at that point. I wasn't. I'm not that young, sadly. It was the opening year for Hex, and I remember that distinctly. And again, I've always said when I go to parks, I love to get the photos, partly for memories, partly just because I like pulling stupid faces. And I'm glad I did, because again, looking through some old photos, I didn't realise I'd got on Corkscrew. You know, as an enthusiast, looking across all the parks and history and all that kind of stuff, I remember seeing Corkscrew and thinking, damn, that looks like a great ride, I wish I'd got on it. And then I found a photo that I did get on it, so extra credit for me. But yeah, that was a couple of trips to Towers that stand out. I don't think there was anything for a while after that really rings a bell. In 2008, my ex-wife and I went on our honeymoon to Florida and did Disney and Universal. Now, again, I kind of liked rides, but I certainly wasn't the enthusiast I am now. I enjoyed Rock and Roller Coaster. I did not like Tower of Terror, and I did not like Expedition Everest, which the pictures kind of say it all. Now, I was in Florida at the start of this year, and things have completely changed. I'm an absolute massive fan of both of those rides. But yeah, after that, I think we took the kids to a number of parks. So actually, no, I didn't learn to drive until I was 24. My ex-wife at the time couldn't drive after having our first child, so I thought, well, I better learn. And yeah, 3 weeks after I passed my test, I drove from Edinburgh down to Legoland, which, I mean, that was baptism of fire, that was. So I definitely remember visiting that park. And fun little fact, I've got a degree in computational physics. Don't remember any of it. Certainly don't use physics in my day job. I write software for a living. So the computing part makes sense. But when I got to Legoland, I was there with a bunch of friends, and all the dads thought, let's go on the log flume. I remember saying, well, I'm going to sit in the front because, you know, the water will go straight over me and it'll soak you guys. The other guys looked at each other and were quite happy to put me in the front of that log flume. And yeah, I didn't stay dry. So I don't know how I got that degree. But after that, again, took the kids to various parks throughout the years. Nothing quite as far down south as that. So we did Towers a few times, did Blackpool, did Lightwater Valley, did Drayton Manor, did Flamingo Land, etc. But yeah, it wasn't really until my ex-wife and I split up in 2016, we had a trip planned to Blackpool, and it was clear the two of us weren't going to go on that trip, so I kind of had to take the kids on my own. And so I took them down to Blackpool by myself. And I think that was when I started to kind of get that bug back for the parks. And I took them on numerous trips after that. I think it was, I always looked at the kind of annual pass and like, well, what's the point in getting an annual pass? You know, it's like a 7-hour return trip for me, plus time in the park. I'm not going to visit that often, there's no point in having one. There's certainly no point in having one for Alton Towers, it's even further, etc. But I was watching one of Scott's videos from Your Experience Guide, or PBE back then, and his wife's from Edinburgh as well. And I remember him talking about how she used to have a season pass and she would travel down to Blackpool, and I thought, I can do that. Now, the first couple of times I did that trip, I was exhausted. Like, I'm going down to Blackpool tomorrow with my daughter, and like now it's just a walk in the park. But, you know, I got a season pass for me and the girls in 2020. Didn't really know that I wasn't going to get to use it very much. Actually saw Scott went down to collect a season pass, and Scott was there doing a present, like sort of like he had a stand set up. So that was quite nice. That was a nice little intro. We did get to the park a couple of times in 2020, but not much. And the park, they did I don't know if any of you remember, but basically they said you can either get a refund on your season pass or we'll give you a reduced rate for the following year. We took the latter offer and ended up with a season pass for 2021. And I think realistically, I've kind of been using the kids as an excuse to go to theme parks when realistically I want to go myself. After having this kind of season pass for 2 years, I think it was 2021, I decided I wanted to go and do some other parks. I had never been, apart from Legoland, I'd never been to all the parks down south. And I did a road trip with the girls. We went down, we did Thorpe Park, we did the Harry Potter experience, we did Chessington, we did Polton's, we did Legoland, and I think we did Cadbury World on the way back. So that was my first exposure to all those parks. Apart from Legoland, I'd been there before. Fantastic. You may have seen I did that trip, a very similar version of that trip last year. I'm potentially going to try and do the same again in a few weeks' time, because most of the parks I've just listed have had new things since I was last there. Hyperia, if it's back up and running. Ghost Train I didn't get on, it wasn't open when I was there last year. At Mandrill Mayhem at Chessington wasn't open at that point. Legoland's obviously got Minifigure Speedway, and possibly if Drayton Manor announce their new ride, I might kind of go there as well. So I do like that road trip, again, because of distance. You know, it's not easy for me to just pop down and do one of those parks. I did look at flying down to do like Hyperia. Like the cheapest I could get was like 150 quid return flight, and then I have to hire a car and drive from Stansted, because that's the cheapest one. So when I do it, I tend to just go, do you know what, I'm going down there for a week, I'll just take my car, drive down, do all the parks. So I've done that a couple of times, I will probably do it again. But yeah, that's kind of my introduction to the parks down south. Fast forward a few more years, and again, when my ex-wife and I were together, we always said we would take the girls to Florida when they were old enough. We'd done kind of Disney Paris, but you know, going out there, there's no point in going all the way out to America if your kids can't go on the rides. I decided to honour that agreement all by myself. So last year, no, not last year, 2022, I took my girls over to Florida for 2 weeks. We did a week in Disney, we did a week in Universal, and absolutely loved it. Now bear in mind at this point, YouTube isn't even on the horizon, there's no suggestions of it, so I have no camera, I'm not filming anything, like I'm just there chilling out, enjoying myself. Guardians had just launched, which was fantastic, absolutely love that ride. But at this point, more and more the enthusiasm's kind of coming out, and I'm watching various channels. So I'm watching Scott on Your Experience Guide, I'm watching Theme Park Worldwide, I'm watching a bunch of other channels. And I remember seeing this little park in Germany that was about to launch this brand new ride. And I knew nothing about this park, I knew nothing about this ride, but of course it is Phantasialand and it was Fly. And after seeing all these guys going on this ride, I was like, I have to get out there. So again, I booked another trip with the girls. Not as easy flight-wise to get there from here as it is for you guys down south. So, but we got there and we had an absolute blast of a time. And at that point, I fell in love with that park. It is just spectacular. I was taking pictures of Klugheim. Fly was great, but Taron to me was the standout. I absolutely loved that ride. So I'm posting all these pictures and stuff on social media, my personal social media that is. And I had quite a few friends say to me, have you thought about doing YouTube? And I hadn't at that point. And I thought, well, do you know what? I'm doing all the traveling. I'm going to these parks anyway. Why not just take a camera with me and share it? So I got myself a GoPro for my birthday last year, took the girls to Efteling and filmed my first vlog, which, you know, probably by looking back at the progress over the last 18 months, I mean, it's like night and day. I was so nervous filming in front of the camera now. I certainly wasn't doing what I'm doing right now. But I had a blast. Again, another amazing park. And it's kind of grown from there. I think as a 40-something-year-old man, I kind of got to that stage where I'm like, I'm good at my job, school's past me, I don't need to learn anything, I know what I know and that's it. But I think that is kind of not true, and I've actually thoroughly enjoyed the last 18 months learning about YouTube and, thumbnail design and editing and retention and, all that kind of stuff. For me, it's building a new skill. But the flip side of that is the social side of things. I absolutely love interacting with you guys online. The fact that some of you come up to me in the park and say, hey, I watched your videos, can I get a picture with you? It blows my mind. I'm still a little guy, right? I'm 1,700 subscribers right now. It just amazes me. I'm just doing what I enjoy and sharing it. And I sometimes forget that there are actually people that watch this stuff, which is just fantastic. For all of you who have been there from the start and all those who joined me along this journey, I literally cannot thank you all enough. I genuinely appreciate every single one of you. I have set myself some crazy goals. You've probably heard me in a few videos. If you know me, I like to push myself. I don't do things kind of half-arsed. So I've set a ridiculous goal of 10,000 subs by next year, which I might not hit, right? Realistically, that's a hell of a goal, but I like to kind of aim high and see where I get to. Just to be clear, I am not doing this for the money. I mean, right now, YouTube maybe covers a tank of petrol a month to get to the parks, which is great. That's not the primary goal. That's certainly not, I've got a good job. This is not going to replace my full-time job. I do this because it's what I'm passionate about. It's what I enjoy. And I love when I interact with you guys. I would love to get to that stage where I kind of meet more and more people, more and more channels. I would absolutely love to be on one of these press lists. I keep seeing all the guys getting invited to the launch of Hyperia and Voltron and the stuff over in Ireland and all these big press events. Just to go to one of them, I would absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. So yeah, I mean that's kind of how I went from that little kid in Blackpool to the nutcase that's on YouTube in front of you right now. But yeah, that's kind of my story. That's how I got here, and as I say, no idea what the future holds, but I would love to just keep growing, get more followers so that more people can see me being an idiot and share my passion. So anyway, that is about it for today. If you've enjoyed this video, please do hit that like button. And if you haven't already subscribed, then please do. It really does mean a lot to me. I've been Chris, and you've been watching Coaster Dad. See you in the next one.